Jared Wise. Jared Wise was here on January 6th with the insurrectionists that stormed the Capitol. He was filmed, and he was saying, excuse me, to the police officers, quote, "You guys are disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo." He egged on the violent mob that was attacking police officers, yelling, quote, "Yeah, F them. Yeah, kill them."
Programs are free of fraud.
Thank you, Senator Durbin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McDonald, welcome, and welcome to your lovely family. Be careful with your comments, because 3 of your children are taking notes on everything that you say. And there's going to be a record over there for you to answer to later on. Let me ask you a question about weaponization, which has been a term frequently used by the new administration to stop weaponization. A gentleman by the name of Ed Martin is well known to this committee. He's been removed from 2 positions already in the Trump administration. I don't know where he is today. But you have been identified as the co-chair of the Weaponization Working Group. Mr. Martin has described that as a group that's going to get even with people who are critical of the president. Are you co-chair of that group?
Senator, thank you for the question. President Trump was right early in the administration to identify the reality of weaponization in the federal government in the recent past, and commissioned the Department of Justice to review certain prior facts and certain prior cases to determine the facts of those underlying those cases, and to ensure that those misuses of the government power were not engaged in again. The Department of Justice, under the leadership of Attorney General Bondi, has been undertaking that work to understand what went wrong during the prior administration, to learn from it, to learn from the mistakes of the past, and to ensure that we do not make those mistakes.
So the answer is yes, you're co-chair of the Weaponization Working Group?
Senator, I am involved in the work of the Weaponization Working Group. That's been one of my many responsibilities in the office of the Deputy Attorney General.
You're very tactful in your answer. The president is explicit. He's going after the people that he thinks went after him. And as many of us believe, that should come to an end. But you've been part of Mr. Martin's effort, and I want to put that on the record. How about Jared Weiss? Do you know him?
Senator, as the Department of Justice has reported, Mr. Wise is an employee of the Department of Justice.
And what was your involvement in the decision to hire him?
Senator, I am not today going to get into any personnel matters with respect to the Department of Justice. I will say that I am not involved in hiring decisions for the Department of Justice.
I understand why you don't want to answer the question. Here's the story on Jared Wise. Jared Wise was here on January 6th with the insurrectionists that stormed the Capitol. He was filmed, and he was saying, excuse me, to the police officers, quote, "You guys are disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo." He egged on the violent mob that was attacking police officers, yelling, quote, "Yeah, F them. Yeah, kill them." The man was then prosecuted for his conduct, and he was subject, of course, to the full unconditional pardon of President Trump, and then went to work for the Justice Department in your division. Do you have any problems with his background?
Senator, what I'm here to talk about today is the problem facing the American taxpayer, which is, as I mentioned, between $230 billion annually in fraud perpetrated against government taxpayers.
I want to know more about you. I'm asking if you know Jared Weiss and his background, and were you part of the decision to make him an employee of the Justice Department after what I just described? It's a simple question. You can say, yes, I was involved. No, I wasn't involved.
Senator, I would refer back to my prior answer where I mentioned that I am not involved in the hiring decisions associated with the Department of Justice.
Do you have any problem with his background working for the Justice Department?
Senator, I would refer to my prior answer, which is that the weaponization work in the Department of Justice currently is critical work to understand some of the underlying facts and circumstances of what went on in the prior administration.
I think it's
and
more
the President and the Attorney General was right to focus the Department of Justice.
I think it's more than a seminar on what would happen before it is an agenda, which we're hoping will end, and I don't hear that from you. Let me ask you, were you involved in the decision to disband the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team?
Senator, as the Department of Justice has made clear, those personnel with the cryptocurrency expertise have been added to other portions of the Department of Justice, and anyone engaged in any sort of fraud, regardless of the currency, is investigated and is prosecuted where appropriate by the Department of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Senator.
In that final exchange, the tension in the room became impossible to ignore. Senator Dick Durbin looked directly at the nominee and asked a question that cut through the formalities of the hearing. Was he co-chair of a so-called weaponization working group, a group described by Ed Martin as one that would get even with people critical of the president? After careful phrasing and layered explanations about reviewing past government conduct, the nominee ultimately acknowledged his involvement. "I am involved in the work," he said. That moment was more than procedural. It was revealing. Durbin's concern was not abstract. He tied it to names, to actions, to consequences. He raised the case of Jared Weiss. A man present at the Capitol on January 6th recorded shouting inflammatory words at police officers, later prosecuted, then pardoned, and now reportedly working within the Justice Department. Durbin's questions were simple, direct, almost clinical. Were you involved in hiring him? Do you have any concerns about his background? The answers did not come. Instead, the nominee returned again and again to a broader narrative, one about fraud against taxpayers, about reviewing past misuses of government power, about correcting alleged mistakes of a prior administration. He avoided the personnel question. He avoided the moral question. He avoided the clarity the senator was demanding. And that avoidance is what makes this exchange significant. Because confirmation hearings are not merely about resumes or policy proposals. They are about trust, about whether the American people can believe that those entrusted with prosecutorial authority will wield it with restraint and neutrality. When a nominee sidesteps questions about hiring decisions tied to controversial backgrounds, it raises a deeper concern. Is the Justice Department becoming a battleground for political settling of scores? Or is it recommitting itself to impartial enforcement of the law? The phrase weaponization has become one of the defining political words of this era. Each side accuses the other of it. Each claims to be defending institutions from misuse. But what Durbin pressed on was something more specific. Whether the effort to investigate past weaponization risks becoming weaponization itself. There is a paradox at the heart of this exchange. The nominee framed his mission as correcting prior overreach, ensuring that government power is not misused again. Yet the working group he acknowledged participating in has been described, at least by one of its public advocates, as a vehicle to get even. Those two visions cannot comfortably coexist. One speaks the language of reform, the other echoes retaliation. And then there was the second thread of the hearing, the disbanding of the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team. When asked about it, the nominee emphasized that expertise had simply been reassigned, that fraud investigations would continue regardless of currency. On its face, it was a bureaucratic adjustment. But combined with the earlier line of questioning, it underscores a broader issue. What priorities shape the Justice Department? Which cases receive energy and resources? Which investigations are elevated and which are quietly reorganized? In a democracy, these choices matter profoundly. The Department of Justice is not just another federal agency. It is the institutional guardian of law and accountability. Its legitimacy depends on public confidence that prosecutions are grounded in evidence, not politics. That pardons do not become pathways to influence, that working groups are designed to restore integrity, not to pursue grudges. Durbin's frustration was visible. "It's a simple question," he said at one point. "Yes or no?" In that insistence lies the core democratic principle of oversight. Senators do not ask these questions for spectacle. They ask them because the power of the executive branch, especially the power to investigate and prosecute, must be transparent to the people through their representatives. The nominee, for his part, projected composure. He spoke in measured tones about protecting taxpayers from an estimated hundreds of billions lost to fraud annually. He redirected the conversation to mission and mandate. He stayed within carefully drawn boundaries. That discipline may reassure some viewers, but for others, it may amplify the unease that direct answers were never fully delivered. And this is where the broader political context comes into focus. The country is navigating a period of profound institutional strain. Public faith in government has eroded. Accusations of bias and selective enforcement echo across party lines. In such an environment, even the perception of retaliation can be as damaging as retaliation itself. The framers of the Constitution understood something timeless. Power must be checked not only by law, but by culture, by norms, by expectations of candor, by a shared commitment to fairness. When senators question nominees about their association with groups described as seeking to get even, they are not merely debating semantics. They are testing whether those norms still hold. What unfolded in that hearing room was not just a partisan clash, it was a microcosm of a larger struggle over the meaning of justice in America. Is justice corrective or punitive? Is it guided by principle or by grievance? And who decides? The answers will not be determined by a single hearing, but moments like this reveal the fault lines. They show us where transparency meets deflection, where oversight meets executive authority, where rhetoric meets responsibility. In the end, the integrity of the American system does not depend on perfection. It depends on accountability, on the willingness of those in power to answer hard questions plainly, on the courage of elected officials to ask them. This is not just about one nominee. It is about the direction of an institution, about whether the scales of justice remain balanced even in turbulent times. The American people deserve clarity. They deserve confidence that the rule of law stands above party, above personality, above politics. Stay informed. Stay engaged. And if you believe in holding power accountable, subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Support our work to expose the truth.